This week on Your Tribe. Election fever is on. Can you take the heat? Mitzi interviews Gabe Mercado on his election fever experiences from the 1986 People Power movement to the present. Find out how new media and the youth heated up the recent Indonesian and Indian elections in Global Tribe. Amer finds out what tribes are saying about how politicians can cool down in the sizzling heat, and your say. Carlo Oplet tells us how the internet and digital media are creating a surge in election fever temperature and gimmick. Finally, Ellie and PJ wrap up the show with a few tips for tribes to get in on election fever. It all starts right now on
Your Tribe. Good evening, you're watching Your Tribe. Thanks for joining us tonight. The topic for tonight, election fever. Things are heating up as we get closer to the May 10 elections. Tonight, our guest knows all about what being in the heat of election fever is. Actor, singer, comedian, entrepreneur, Gabe Mercado. He does everything, actually. Thanks for being with us,
Thank
Gabe.
you for having me, Mitzi.
Something people probably don't know out there is that in 1986, you were referred to as a teenage rebel. This was because of People Power, wasn't it? Tell us a little about it.
Yes, I was involved actually in the 1986 revolution. I was one of those kids, when books of 1986 come out, I was one of those two kids who were in Radyo Bandido and Radyo Veritas with June Keithley when the revolution broke out.
Yeah. How did that start? How did you get involved?
It really started with my brother and I and a few other friends were all actors under Father James B. Reuter. And Father James B. Reuter, if you look him up in history, he was actually always an icon in theater, but he was also at the head of the anti-dictatorship movement in many ways. He was court-martialed. 32 plus charges during martial law. And during that time, he was also the head of the Philippine Federation of Catholic Broadcasters. And because the press was not really free at that time, there was an acute need to get independent sources of news for the Philippine Federation of Catholic Broadcasters in the lead up to the 1986 snap elections.
Yeah.
So Father Reuter just used his network of actors, and mostly it was us, teenage boys and girls, and with a lot of energy, gathering news for the federation, and then the units would fan out. Maybe there were 7 units plus, and they would send news from the polling precincts, Comelec, NAMFREL, back to Father Reuter, and we would also relay that news to June Keithley, who was the mouthpiece of the federation, and she was there in Radyo Veritas during snap elections, so that when the revolution actually broke out about 2 or 3 weeks after the snap elections, he just reactivated that old network, and since we were assigned to June Keithley, that's how my brother and I ended up in Radyo
really
Bandido.
Exciting. A lot of people can just dream about that kind of life. I mean, a lot of our audiences today who are maybe in their 20s, they don't even know what that feeling was like. Their parents probably wouldn't allow them, even now in their 20s, but you were 12, 13.
12, 13, yeah.
What was it like every day? I mean, what did your parents think? Did you feel this was such a dangerous situation for you?
When you're a boy at the age of 12, 13, everything's an adventure, and everything is I mean, if you're with those 12 or 13-year-old boys, they're always gung-ho, and they have no sense of danger in many ways. So I guess that was where I was at that time, and so I think that it was easy to make a decision to be heroic and a little bit gung-ho back at that age. But if you asked me to do that right now, with the weight of life's responsibilities on me, I might not be as brave as I was when I was 13.
So it was a good time for that.
It was a good time for that, absolutely.
And that paved the way for where you are today, because since then you've been involved in voter education campaigns.
Absolutely, in different ways. That was the first real experience of the elections in 1986. And then in the subsequent elections after that, we would cover them as well as part of that network, and we would cover them as part of NAMFREL and things like that. And you have to remember that after 1986, there were 2 elections right away after that, the plebiscite to approve the 1987 Constitution, and then the first elections to fill in the seats for Congress and Senate. So those three, those happened within a span of 4 years.
And when that things really happened, right?
Yes.
It's kind of different from what we're seeing today, where people are all talk. How would you compare the spirit you felt then, you lived with, you know, the spirit of the youth, your colleagues, from now? Maybe we have so much more distraction also.
Well, yes. I mean, back then, in 1986, there were 5 television stations.
Yeah.
5 television stations, and only about 2 were worth watching. Okay, the others were just not worth watching. There was no internet, and there were people really watched movies more, things like that, and it seemed like a simpler, quieter world, and there weren't too many things to occupy you, and so I guess that's why people really got more involved and were more concerned about the elections. There was hardly any person, even at my age back then, who did not care about the elections.
Yeah, everybody we talked to,
Right.
everybody had to do something.
Or it doesn't even if they didn't really do something, they had strong feelings about who they were for, who they were against. Our class was really divided. I was grade 7. It was divided, siguro 3/4 now. Three quarters were more for Cory and all of that. 1/4 were for Marcos. But it was rabid. People cared about it. And I think now, believe it or not, it seems that now is the first election that we have in a long time where more younger people are caring.
Yeah. People really want change.
Yes.
Yeah. It's come to that point. It's a generation thing.
And people are more are
aware, do you think?
They want to support somebody.
Yeah.
In these elections, it doesn't matter who, but there seems to be my
sick
perception.
of trapo politics, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or sick of not caring, maybe.
Yeah.
Sana ganon.
Yeah. Let's talk about Pacquiao. This is your character last year.
Okay.
And in fact, a lot of people have been asking, they miss seeing you. What happened? First of all, Pacquiao was a role that you took on.
Pacquiao was a role I took on, and Pacquiao was an effort to put in a humorous, crazy, off-kilter character everything that's wrong with Philippine politics, and therefore use it as a sort of a negative teaching tool.
Yeah.
For people to avoid the kind of people in politics. It was started by a group called Pagbabago, and it was formed in the middle of last year.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it really just lost momentum, the interest in that, and in that character and our pursuit of that character for 2 reasons. One, the organization, the mother organization, didn't really get off the ground, I think, as much as they hoped it would. And my suspicion is that if I look at some of the organizers now, they're all in different political camps. So maybe that's one of the reasons. And secondly, I think when Pacquiao was conceptualized, it was, maybe it underestimated the intelligence of the Filipino voter, because right now the character, the Pacquiao was really very negative, etc., etc. And if there's anything that I see right now, I think Filipino voters are a little bit more careful about who they choose, a little bit.
So we need more of a positive slant.
Parang alam na nila kung sinong iiwasan eh. So there was no need for a negative character like that.
And here, in this environment, things are always changing.
So I think in the short span that it lived, it was useful.
Yeah. So do you miss doing that? Well, you have other roles, other activities that you're involved in, and we will be talking about later, because at this point, we are going to talk about global tribes and election fever in other parts of Asia. Tonight, we're going to look at a segment that talks about new media in the youth and elections in India and Indonesia. Let's watch this.